Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to talk about the statement that Red Dead Redemption 2's HDR feature, High Dynamic Range feature, serves no real purpose. Now, to understand whether it does serve a purpose or not, we need to understand what HDR is. Now, HDR is, in its simplest form, a high dynamic range. Now, dynamic range means the beginning and the end of something and how far it goes in between. So in the case of dynamic range of a picture, it's how bright it can go at the top, let's say for instance the brightest part of around the clouds, and how dark it can go at the bottom, let's say for instance the darkness of the trees there in the bottom of the middle. So the dynamic range is between the brightness and the darkness, and it's how bright the picture can get and how dark the picture can get all at one go. Now, it means when the picture gets dark, it can't remove the bright, and when it gets bright, it can't remove the dark, otherwise the effect is not real, it's just mimicked. Now, it's been said that Red Dead Redemption 2's high dynamic range is just not worth turning on. Now, to think about high dynamic range in a more simplistic manner, you can think of it like a bus. If you imagine a big long bus, and that's our high dynamic range, a bus, just the length of a bus. Now HDR, which is high dynamic range, high definition, that should be the length of a bus, very, very wide range. Whereas a standard dynamic range, which is known from standard definitions, that should be the width of, let's say, a car. So if you imagine the car and the bus next to each other, the high dynamic range should be the bus, and the car would be the standard dynamic range. And the difference is, it's how many differences there is in that length of that bus between dark and light. Because what high dynamic range is concerned with, number one, contrast, number two, luminance, number three, color. So your contrast is the ability to give you steps and gradation that you can notice, not just mixed. Your luminance is the ability to give you light, and your color, of course, is the ability to give you different varied colors, not just a strong white and a strong green and a strong red, but differences between them. So in between versions of them, let's say a faded red, a darker red, a brighter red, a vibrant red. So that's what it's concerned with. So if you look at standard dynamic range, which is the standard for, let's say, the standard PS4 or PS3, for instance, Xbox 360, Xbox One, for instance, then that's going to be able to give you so much of the color, of the luminance, and of the contrast. And high definition, it's not actually high definition, it's high dynamic range, that will give you more. But we can associate them, to keep them simple, with standard definition and high definition. So what it's been found is, it's been found by Digital Foundry. They've done a bit of research, guys, and we're going to pop in some pictures in a moment and I'll show you. But what's been found is that when you test the pictures and the video footage of this Red Dead Redemption, what they're finding is, when you adjust the setting in the settings for high dynamic range and you put the brightness right up and you go back and check what's actually in the picture, they use a specialized camera, it shows that the dynamic range is moving rather than getting wider. So as we explained earlier, you'd have a smaller version car and a big bus. Now, rather than it going from a car to a bus stretching out, it's moving. So if you imagine the car now put inside the bus, the dynamic range is moving from left to right rather than a big widening and a new dynamic range input. So they're finding that there's no more information in the HDR on Red Dead Redemption 2 than there is in the standard definition. So in theory, there might be no reason to turn it on. Will that make much of a difference? Well, we'll explain it more now, guys, and go over it more, but we're going to show you some pictures. Now these pictures, what they're finding is, you should find, where you see the bright orange and the bright colors, you should find different colors within that, because that means that the high dynamic range is active. Whereas they're not, they're finding either bright or none. and it should be more speckled of the bright colours. So it's proven to be true that the high dynamic range is faked. But is that a big deal? Well, we'll discuss more about faking images, 4K, and what it means for console gamers and PC gamers alike. Now here it is, guys. So it's basically, if you look to the left, you've got the darker part, or it should be darker. If you go down, it gets darker, and if you go up, it gets brighter. Now that gives you more definition on the left side of the picture, the brighter. But on the right side of the picture, over near the clouds, it blinds them out. So you want to find the range where you get significant difference in the clouds on the right, and you can see the significant differences in the left. Now it says here suggested brightness for an OLED TV is 300, for an LCD is 100. So most 4K TVs will be LCD, unless you've got a top of the range, one of the LG or Sony. You might have an OLED, but otherwise you'll have an LCD lighting, even if it's a 4K TV. So it says it's 100. Now what they're meant to be implementing here is a trick. Now the trick is meant to be, rather than widening the range as we see here as we're going up, rather than widening it, like we said, the car to bus analogy, so rather than going from a car with standard definition to a bus, they're just moving the car along the bus. So they're just moving the range, so the range is staying the same. So if you imagine the range is 10 meters long, when they're putting on HDR Red Dead Redemption 2, they're just moving that 10 meters along the picture, left and right. So if you're moving it along, you're losing the opposite. So if you move it to brightness, you're losing darkness. If you move it to darkness, you're losing brightness. As we can see here, when we turn it up, you're losing the white on the right. The clouds are mixing in too much. And then if you turn it down, you're losing the definition on the left. So what it's been found is that it's doing trickery. That means it's not actually true HDR, which is disappointing for most fans, but it's more disappointing on the thought of them doing it than actually visual seeing it. Because the truth is, with most new technologies nowadays on TVs and PCs and everything, most consumers will not notice the difference. You would have to be a really eagle-eyed specialist to notice the difference, and you would almost definitely have to be using a monitor to notice the difference. And most of us nowadays, console gamers, don't sit next to monitors. PC gaming, PCs and all that, they're really going so far behind that most people just know consoles are just top game. Consoles have always brought the technology through, of course. A lot of PC gamers will dispute that, but they don't realise who brought you multi-core processors, who brought you the Bluetooth controllers and that. It was consoles that brought it through strength. Consoles pay for the research to the PC component manufacturers, and then they, once the patent drops off, they then release it on PC, and that's the way it's gone. Whereas it used to be a case of PC Elite used to go through, but in the last, since we've had PS3 generation, it's been consoles that have brought the A-gaming technology. Now what you'd find here is, to do that, to put the technology through at such a low cost, the console has to give up somewhere, and where it usually gives up is its graphics card will not be as powerful as a high-end PC graphics card. You will barely notice the difference at standard viewing distances, but if you had a monitor, you'd notice the difference significantly, because the graphics card would cost twice as much as, let's say, a PlayStation 4 for an Elite PC, and so you still see that they've got the Elite on certain items, but a console's got the whole package. And as we said, the multi-core processors and the GPUs, with such a huge amount now of computing components in them, they stem initially now from the PlayStation 3 type cores, the Jaguar cores and the others that have come through since. But what we find then is, this is not a huge problem, guys. It's a bit of trickery, and it's the same trickery that you will find on a console where you'll think you're getting 4K. We've got these new 4K consoles now, like you've got your Xbox One X and you've got your PS4 Pro, and you've also got the PS4 which can output HDR. However, a lot of it's trickery, guys, and it's tricking your eyes, but it's the same thing that your average TV does to you. Your average TV's been tricking you for the last 10 years when it's processing things to get it to you look better for you. It's tricking your eyes. It's not really doing better all the time. It's just using trickery. And that's what we see now with 4K. We see a lot of checkerboarding in games and this, and it's where unusual formulas are added for the processor and the computing processor and the GPU to guess the next steps, and so it's not outputting a true 4K picture. So again, the full HDR or not full HDR, it's not a massive difference for most consumers. For 90% of you out there, it won't make a difference. For the 10% that it will, they're not console gamers. They're probably elite PC, and they'll, they just hold on to that fort, and that's all that they hold on to. So for most console gamers, it's not a big deal, guys. It is worrying, but it's as worrying as checkerboard. And most of your 4K games that you think output 4K don't. They use different methods via checkerboard and other methods like that just cheat 4K out, and that is okay, guys, because it's not a huge difference. It's the same jump from a 1080p screen and a 4K screen. If you sit at normal viewing distances, you will not see the difference. You think you will. You might see the picture a bit crisper, that you can achieve that by turning your sharpness up on your 1080p screen. You will not tell the difference. If you were sat 2 feet from your screen like a gamer, PC gamer, you would probably see the difference slightly. But the truth is, it doesn't matter for most of you. And we'll get into more of that, more technology guides in the future, guys, about plasma, LCD, LED. What is the difference? What does it mean for consumers? It just means you're wearing an elite badge or you're not, and we're going to get into and go over that stuff in the future. But as far as Red Dead Redemption 2 is concerned, a lot of you have talked to me about this and said, you're devastated, it's cheating. It is and it isn't. So what they're doing effectively is they're moving the dynamic range from left of the screen to the right of the screen, and you can either see super bright or super dark instead of just widening the dynamic range. And that has been seen and been found by people who've tested it, and they found that the gamma within the actual picture is just moving from left to right, and it's not widening. So is it a big difference? Slight. Is it a big deal? Not that much, guys. We say it looks gorgeous no matter what. There's no fault in the game because of this that's come out. Is it cheating? It's as cheating as your average TV that you're watching this on, guys. Your average TV's been cheating you for 10 years using trickery to trick your brain into certain motion steps so that it looks smoother. When you get your 1600 hertz TV that most of you are probably watching this on now, it's not a 1600 hertz TV. They don't exist. It's not a 1600 hertz TV. It's just trickery with numbers. It's just fooling you. We'll go over that in the future. Don't panic if you think what TV is not 1600. It's just they use trickery to trick the mind, and the 1600 hertz is really probably a 200 hertz. And it's the same here, guys. They're using a bit of trickery to fool the mind, but at the end of the day, the pictures look gorgeous, and we don't think it'll make that much of a difference to the average consumer. So we hope that's helped you out, guys, and we hope you enjoyed it. Do not panic. If you're interested in the LCD and the other technology, guys, we will be going into them in the future. As far as Red Dead Redemption 2 and HDR and full HDR, it's not a big deal, guys. We love it no matter what, and we just can't wait to get online.